Hello, my friends. Welcome to the podcast. Thank you so much for being here and tuning in with me today. I hope you are having a great day so far. I hope it's even better at the end of this conversation. It's always my goal to hopefully leave you, happier or more seen or whatever than when you first came to it. And I hope you just feel like we're chatting because we truly are. I'm just sitting here on my birth ball. I just happen to be talking into a microphone. So, today we're going to talk about the sweet spot. And that is what I call the place where you are enjoying your life, but you also feel at peace and comfortable with your body in its shape, its weight, and all of that good stuff. Now, I know this is very much more easily said than done. So I'm going to start right away with saying, I know we all come to the table, most of us, with some kind of baggage around a lot of times, health and fitness and dieting and exercise and feelings with our bodies, maybe as a teen, like you felt like you were overweight and you always wanted to be losing weight, or you didn't struggle as a teen and you were athletic and you were comfortable in your body, but now a couple kids in, you don't feel like yourself or whatever. Like we all have different perspectives, opinions, experiences, all of that. And it fluctuates so much. I mean, that is truly the nature of the game as women, how much we fluctuate if we're having babies and things like that, going through hormonal changes, all that good stuff. So, this is truly more of like a girlfriend's chat today where I just want to encourage you to find and figure out what your sweet spot is. Because something I've found in the last over a decade of working with women is a lot of times it's hard to find where the kind of quote unquote finish line should be. And what I mean is somebody say needs or wants to lose 20 pounds or just a couple, say 5% body fat. Okay. If they're able to take their body fat, because I do like to go more by body fat than by weight. All right. So say they want to lose 5% body fat and they have, and they've worked hard and they did all these, instilled all these healthy habits to get there. They're maintaining these healthy habits. However, they feel like they have to like go to the next level then physically. Like, well, I should still be in fat loss mode. Or what's the next thing? Like, should I cut this now? They're just or they are physically in good shape and fitting in a healthy size clothes, like all the things, they're at a healthy body fat, but they feel like it's not enough and feel like they want to be thinner and things like that. Now, I'm not talking and going to get into things like body dysmorphia today, which is a very real thing. And I've worked with people who I've told, like, lovingly, like, I think you might have an issue of seeing yourself as you actually are, which, is kind of a really simple definition of body dysmorphia, but kind of like a disordered view of yourself of like, I don't think you're seeing what's actually there. Because I think a lot of times we can get caught up in this chasing the carrot of reaching a goal and changing our bodies whenever we don't even realize that we are there. We kind of don't know when enough's enough. So if you're that person, and I'm talking to that person today, my absolute wish for you and goal for you would be to be able to know, like, this is where I kind of draw the line. Like, this is where I'm happy to maintain. And it does not mean that you cannot keep progressing. In your fitness level. You could still get stronger, faster. Like, there's so many performance things you can do. I kind of went through this after my first child, where I remember like getting back down to pretty much almost before where I was before I got married, which was my lowest I had been. And my experience with that was like, I struggled to get the last little quote unquote bit off before a year when he was still breastfeeding. Then I stopped breastfeeding and got back to just normal life without breastfeeding. And that's when I dropped the last couple percent body fat. And that was when I was like, okay, I could try to really get back to, or even like be to where I was pre-wedding, which was 18% body fat, which is the lowest I'd personally been. But that's going to mean I'm a little more restrictive with my nutrition. That's going to mean I'm going to, maybe cut out all alcohol except for one drink on the weekends with my husband, but like one or, an actual like 3 ounces, whatever serving is of wine. And I'm not just saying alcohol, but like treats, like it means I'm going to be saying no to most treats rather than like yes to some. And there was just things that I was like, you know what? I actually feel like I look fine at this point, and I'm going to focus more on getting into body weight exercises. This is when I realized, like, hey, you should be able to do body weight dips. You should be able to do some body weight pull-ups and chin-ups. Like, those are things you've never really trained or pursued or whatever. And I put my energy and focus in there. So I was progressing. It's not being like, okay, good, this is as good as I'm going to get in fitness or whatever, but to get into something maybe a little more skill specific or try something different. Like, if you've never, this is when I start looking at then usually like something to compete in. I know not everybody's competitive, and things have crossed my mind before of like, oh, maybe I'll do a triathlon. Nix that one very quickly because I'm a terrible swimmer. But then like the race, okay, I just kind of want to see if I can run 50 miles. Let's run 50 miles. Like, different things. It could be whatever it is for you. It does not have to be this whole new arena in fitness. It's also perfectly fine to just realize, like, I like the workouts I'm doing. I like everything how it is. I'm just going to maintain it here. But it's realizing you have reached your destination and being able to enjoy that and truly enjoy that without the guilt and shame of like, oh, I shouldn't be eating this or I shouldn't be doing this. Like, knowing enough's enough. And I think it's really important. This is something that I think about when I'm 80 years old. Am I going to look back and be like, wow, I wish I'd been 2% less body fat? Like, no, if I fit in the clothes that I wanted to wear comfortably, I had energy to keep up with my kids. I felt like attractive and energetic for my husband, those kinds of things. Then I really don't think a 2% fluctuation is going to matter to me. And I think if I was 80 years old looking back and it was a matter of being 20% or 22% body fat, and at 22%, I was having like more treats with my kids, like popcorn movie nights with Christmas movies and hot chocolate or whatever, or like sneak in cookies while they're in the bath, like with them, like funny things, like those kind of memories with mom, or having a fun cocktail with my husband, watching a Christmas movie, like that kind of stuff, versus me skipping those things to be 2% less body fat. I do not think my 80-year-old self would approve of that. I think 80-year-old Brittany, I already kind of am 80 years old. Like, most of my hobbies are old lady things like knitting and stuff. So, I can pretty clearly say, I know I would look back and be like, girl, you should have just eaten the cookie. Like, shut up. Like, you looked fine. Also, that feeling. I know, again, we're all at different places, but this is a common thing with women too, that we look back at a picture that we, say we're in 5 years ago, and we're like, wow, I actually didn't look that bad. And I thought that I was like, in a really bad spot there. And not always. Sometimes I know it works the other way, where we're like, wow, we see a picture and it calls us to action. And they're like, well, we need to do something, whatever. But, it's usually we're a little bit less harsh on ourselves in hindsight than we are in the moment. Now, that is the person that kind of needs to, again, pump the brakes, realize you're at your destination, and stop trying to seek like a quote unquote perfection that really is not going to exist this side of heaven. But then there are people too who are not that close to their goals yet. So what does that mean for them? Like, do they need to just grind it out till they get to their goals? No, I think in general, the whole process that I promote for fat loss, eating 80% whole clean foods, 20% treats, and you're allowed to incorporate those treats right into your daily calories, your daily macros. That in and of itself, I think and hope promotes you living in that sweet spot, even while you're pursuing fat loss, even while you're not at your ideal goal weight. I do not want you to be, I want you to do the same thing. I want you to still be able to enjoy cookies with your kids, a cocktail with your husband, these kinds of things. If you want to do that while you're actually losing fat, that's the really great part about how our process works and why I do it the way I do it. So I think that's there for everybody. It's just I think more of a mental challenge when you're not where you want to be physically, but trying not to beat yourself up about that mentally and trying not to let it affect other areas of your life. So for me, this always happens a couple months postpartum. When I'm like about 3 months postpartum, I always have this conversation with my husband where I'm like, okay, I know it's only been a couple months. In the beginning, I'm all happy to not rush it. But I'm like, but I want to feel back to myself. I want to fit in my jeans again, but I know I can't rush it physically. I'm breastfeeding, so I can't do anything drastic, nutrition wise. Like, I'm just lamenting the fact that I still feel, like 5 months pregnant sometimes is how you feel at 3 months postpartum, And I think that's just more a mental and like character challenge of realizing this is not always going to be how it is. Some things also just take time. It's not just your like in that scenario, I don't need to be putting in any more effort. I don't need to be probably looking at my nutrition anymore. I just need more time away from delivery and childbirth and whatnot. And it amplifies with each subsequent kid. You can see that, where it takes somebody literally physically your uterus to shrink back down after your eighth baby, then your second. Like this is the way it goes. So learning to be okay with that, living life, telling ourselves it's okay and it's a season is difficult in the moment, but it's a freeing spot. But overall, I'm not going to draw this out forever because I think you guys get the idea. I want you, this is your homework, to think about what that sweet spot looks like for you, especially again, if you are a person who has been at this a while and thinks you're pretty close to what you would consider your goal. I think it's very common for women to just automatically say they need to lose weight. And I don't just think it, I know it. I've seen it in surveys where they've surveyed, a room full of women or whatever, and given the options of like, do you think you need to lose 10 pounds, lose more than 10 pounds? Like, you think you're at a good weight, or do you think you need to like gain weight? And almost always the biggest category in studies that I have seen and surveys that I have seen has been that women respond right around the classic, like, I could stand to lose 10 pounds. And I think it's just almost like a fallback, like just because we assume we could probably be in a better spot than we are. And I think that probably applies to other places in life where we're like, oh, yeah, I could be like a little bit better financially. Oh, yeah, I could be like giving a little bit more in the motherhood department or like with my husband or whatever. I think we just sometimes don't accept when we are doing well in an area and think like, no, I'm actually good where I am. So I just encourage you to kind of assess, think about that for yourself of like, where do I really feel like I am? When is enough enough? And can I like jam out here now? This is my favorite thing in working with clients. There's a wonderful client and friend who I know is probably listening to this episode who will send me, you know who you are, because you'll send me periodic email updates. We will tell each other things to update. And she has shared before, like, oh my goodness, this was such a great holiday season because I actually had Christmas cookies with my kids and I didn't feel guilt and shame after. And I still did my workouts and I still ate my vegetables and da 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 da. And no one, died as a result of me having a hot toddy and I don't know. I'm trying to think of a Christmas cookie. I'm blanking on one. And those are my favorite kind of emails and reports to get of like, wow, I am at that place where I'm like, all right, we can just kind of do this. Like, this is just a lifestyle and figuring out what that looks like for you. And truly, I think I encourage all of you to think about your older self and really what you would say looking back if you were like your grandma. If you are your own grandma looking back at you right now, what would you say to you about, your weight and body fat, whatever, of like, all right, enjoy life a little bit and don't worry about stop stressing over the last 20 pounds or whatever it is. Or maybe if you do, could stand to be healthier and lose about 50 pounds or something like, all right, well, continue the moderation and enjoying life in that way. Like pursuing fat loss is fine because then maybe you'll get like, you will get to a healthier spot, but then decide when enough's enough. There's gotta be, don't keep moving the finish line. When the marker keeps moving, that's when it's just like, all right, it can become obsessive. It can become, even if it's not obsessive, like I do think it would just be unhealthy and a bad example for me at this point to be trying to pursue that same body fat percentage that I was, pre-wedding and whatnot, because what would I be demonstrating to my family to get to that? I would have to be like, almost like I said, almost never having treats with them. I'd have to be eating super clean foods all the time. So foregoing like pizza nights and then it's showing them like, well, mom doesn't eat that food. Like that kind of gives that diet culture mentality of like, well, mom's on a diet. Like for what? To what end? So decide where enough's enough for you and then enjoy that middle road. I love that. I truly love and enjoy like the being I know right now I'm recording this very pregnant and then I'll be postpartum soon, but I love that like sweet spot after that hopefully I'll be into soon where it's like, all right, I am 4% up from where I was when I got married, but we are having a good time and we are, enjoying life, but still fit and still healthy. And that's where I like to be. So this is not the bodybuilder podcast. This is a Healthy Catholic Moms podcast. So hopefully you can get on board with a little more moderation. All right, ladies. Thank you for joining me and listening to me possibly blather on about that today. Just really passionate about that and was talking about that with a friend recently too. Next podcast episode, it's going to be a quick down and dirty one for you. It's 5 tips for fitting in exercise in the busy holiday season. So tune in for that and I'll talk to you then. Have a great rest of your day.